How's it going? Welcome back to the Diary of the Horrible Trader. It is Friday morning before opening bell, 8:07 in the morning. And this is the only day of the week that I can actually day trade if I want to. I work Sunday through Thursday on my day job. And it's been an interesting week, watching as basically my entire portfolio tanks yet again. Figured I would get into what swing trades I'm actually in. Full disclosure right up ahead of time, I did not treat them properly like swing trades like I was supposed to. And I didn't get into them based on them being proper swing trades either. So what I did was I started getting fed up with thinking that I was going to automatically know what I was doing, right? So last time, if you watched the previous video to this one, I mentioned how I started getting into some growth ETFs to just park my money there in order to be a hedge against me doing my horrible trading. But then I managed to grab all of those ETFs at the very top of a short-term crash. So 2 of them stopped out, and then yesterday the third one did. Lit. I am now out of Lit. It stopped out from dropping 15% on its highs. And it's unfortunate because I got into them right at the exact peak, almost about, 3 weeks ago now, that, the stock market hit its peak. And we're looking at this and everyone's still wondering if we're gonna finally fall through the floor and be in a bear market, or if this bounce is finally coming, which leads me to my other problem. So I'm sure everybody knows Charlie over at ZipTraderU. And by the way, what I'm about to say is nothing against him or anything that he does. He's great. I'm not. So another part of me getting tired of trying to figure this out on my own and try to hedge against me being horrible at this, I got into some of his trades too, with some of the rest of my account. And I was literally just going to maybe with 20% of my account play with on my own, in a sense. So I get into his trades not knowing that he trades the way that he does, which is he doesn't care how long it takes to hit his price target at all. Does not care. Which makes sense, because if the company is valued at that amount, it makes sense that it eventually, after fluctuations and news and different things and blah, 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 that eventually it will get there. And that he just sees every time it dips lower to be a buying opportunity, which I get 100% too. Hey, listen, we've all watched The Spy. It ever so slowly just goes like this, right? And it's got deviations, right? This is just a deviation, So most of the stock market just keeps going up. Let's be real about that. Most of it just keeps going up. But then you have these small short-term 2 to 3 week, crashes and all that kind of stuff. Deviations, and it shakes people out, it makes them concerned, that sort of thing. So apparently I bought into a bunch of Charlie plays at pretty much the exact peak, the same day that I bought all the other, growth ETF plays as well. Very, very smart. Now, I'm still in those because the point of those plays were for me to be like, you don't know what you're doing. Charlie knows what he's doing. Just follow what Charlie is doing. Kind of like when you have someone else manage your money. So I'm still in those plays, 3 of them. I am in HYLN, PLTR, and TLRY. Now HYLN, to be honest about it, was not a play he told anyone to get into. I mean, technically he doesn't tell anyone to get into anything. He just saw what I saw. It was bearish, 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 and finally on really good news about how it's going to develop a, revolutionary battery, it popped up big time for one day. Now, I know not to buy it at the exact high on that first day, but I've seen very commonly that it's going to kind of dip down to maybe like a 50% retracement-ish. And then like boom, then it'll start really climbing up again, right? But it didn't do that. It didn't do that at all. It did its 50% retracement. I got in, and it's just been slowly declining ever since. Everybody else and their mother did not see the value in that pump, or they've just got their money tied up in value elsewhere, right? What is that called? Opportunity cost. Why would they pull their money out of a stock that was going up to get into HYLN at the same time when they're probably already invested in EV anyway, right? So, but it wasn't just that, right? That was also, again, like around the peak, where like almost the next day or the day after, the entire market was going to crash anyway. And it's not a crash, it's a correction. I mean, it could be a crash. Nobody really ever knows until it finally drops below that 200 moving average, or below the the recent pivot low or something like that. Nobody ever really knows, and we're getting close to it, by the way. But we'll just have to see. At any rate, HYLN, that one's a little dumb for me to be in, because he said he saw great value in it, that it was been, he saw the same thing, it was beaten down like crazy, he saw it pop up, he sees a lot of value in it, but he never set a price target. That means he's not ready for that one. But I saw it as an opportunity, because I was figuring, oh, this is one of those obvious catalysts, and I didn't mean for a long-term hold forever to a certain price target play. I meant for a nice swing. You just get in it, validation out at, confirmation out of validation, that sort of thing. And I didn't even really wait for a proper confirmation. I just a couple days after it came off its high, when it hit about a 50% retracement-ish, I got in. And then it's just been sideways and lower ever since, and it's kind of doing it on par with the actual tanking of the rest of the market right now. So that's why I was like, oh, I'm just waiting for that pop. I'm just waiting for that pop on the SPY. I'm just waiting for that pop on the SPY to get back to at least break even or something like that. So full disclosure, I am in that one at $18.73 a share. It is now trading at $13.66. So pretty bad. I'm kind of at my breaking point with everything that I'm in right now, where if the market does not come up today, even though it's a Friday, and that's usually not what happens on a Friday, if it does not come up today, or at least stay at its minimum sideways, not going any lower state, I mean, I'm getting out of almost everything I got, That's HYLN. PLTR. Now that's the one he's been pumping pretty much every single video, saying, the more it dips, the more you buy, the more it dips, the more you buy. Out of all of the different things that he's been talking about and other people have been talking about and ARK Invest got into and all that stuff, PLTR seems to be looking pretty good. I mean, it's slowly declining like the rest of the market is, but it's doing so on a very slower pace. It's got bigger pops when it tries to get back up. I've got, when it comes to a volume and chart pattern take, it looks like it's going to be one of the ones that's going to just skyrocket when this correction's done. It's not falling near as fast as almost everything else is, So it's like this thing is just consolidating, little lower, little sideways, but just it's not going lower, not by much, not like everything else is. So that one's, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are actually truly bullish on that ticker, and they're pretty much just waiting for the big money to decide to come back in and decide it's the floor, because we all know that's how this really works. The big money sees that we're at like a peak standard deviation above where we're supposed to be at. They pull the rug out from everybody, make everyone freaking go crazy. Then when they hit the bottom again, they decide where the floor is, and they just come back in and buy everything again. And then everyone's like, oh, I guess the market's back into a euphoria state. And you're like, yeah. When you really get down to brass tacks, you know who's really doing this. It's not just like your everyday average trader are all just kind of banding together to make the stock market go down. or up. I mean, it's side on individual tickers like GameStop or something like that. You know, what's happening is we were a little overbought as an entire market. Someone has to hit the, you know what, I'm going to be the smart person and sell everything right now, force it to go back down to buyable levels, because at some point, someone has to sell. It can't just be bought forever. You literally run out of cash to buy things, and it creates no volatility to trade with, so that's no good for anybody, right? So, you know, big funds, they're like, I'll just pull the rug out from everybody, and they sell everything. And then gets down to where they want it to be the floor, they buy everything again, market looks like it's going back up on some sort of entire, you know, the analysts will claim it's this widespread euphoria that everyone's ready to get back in. Almost as if everybody as a collective hive mind decided together that we are all confident again. We're no longer fearful, we're confident again. There's no we, right? Your average amateur feels almost no confidence at all, right? They're just waiting for the big whales to come back in and buy up everything again, which makes the entirety of the market go green for a couple of days, and everyone's like, okay, I guess we're good now. And then the rest of the money comes back in, right? So that's HYI, and that's PLTR. That one I'm in at 28. That one I waited a lot longer to get into, so it kind of was on a confirmation. So I got in that one at 28, but then it was kind of like a bull trap. And I feel as though it wasn't even a bull trap because of its own ticker in trading. It was a bull trap because all the blood's getting sucked out of the market right now. You know what I mean? It's PLTR, I think, was ready to definitely skyrocket higher, but everyone's unsure. Everyone's waiting for the whales to come back, right? So it's just, you know, so I'm in at 28. It is currently trading at 24.16. That's not bad. Given everything else that I've seen, like, that's pretty good. On to my next one, my marijuana play, TLRY. Now, this one hit like, you know, a ceiling, went up real high. Let me see if I can just look it up real quick. Where'd it go? 76 bucks? 77? What I did was foolish, to say the least. You know, as soon as it came crashing down, you know, Charlie was like, hey, buy the dip. And I bought the first one. Now, granted, again, the entire market's having blood sucked out of it, and it is ever so slightly going, you know, slower, lower, slower, lower. But, you know, if all the blood hadn't been sucked out right then, this probably would have shaped up to be a decent play if I had done it that way. It came crashing down to, like, what, 28? When did I get in? 29.13. 29.13, it crashed down to 29.13 within like a day and a half. And it started to round out there, so I got in. I was thinking that it was going to have a much bigger bounce at first and then level out, but instead had a very small bounce, and it's been kind of leveling out lower and lower by a little bit. So that's currently trading at 22.35, so, you know, down a good 20% on that or so. It's funny because the way that these charts look, long term, yeah, these are coming back. They are. You can tell by looking at the chart, even if you didn't have any faith in the companies at all. Charlie makes a really good, you know, case for all of these companies that he tells everyone to get into, and I believe him, but I don't personally know how to value a company the right way, so I don't believe in trying to do it right now. I believe in trading the chart itself, which, as if you've been listening, I'm still not doing that correctly either. You know what the worst part about being good at certain things when it comes to being, you know, analytical and, you know, being able to recognize a pattern? You know, I've been able to recognize a pattern since I was a kid, you know. I recognize patterns in people. I usually know very quickly when to cut ties with somebody because they're just a pattern of toxicity. You know what I mean? You just, you've got a pattern of this. This isn't a one-off goodbye, you know, like that. The problem with knowing that you know how to do these kinds of things makes it almost even worse when you break all your rules and do the opposite anyway. Like, and that's what I do. I do it all the time. Because greed sets in, all that wonderful stuff, you know. And you break your rules, you break your rules, you break your patterns, you break everything. You know, when I say you, I mean me, obviously. But the whole point of this channel is, I bet there's a lot of people out there that identify with what I'm saying. And the point of this channel is I want you guys to watch as somebody starts from the beginning, is horrible at this, and eventually gets to where they're not so horrible. Because I'm in this for the long haul. I don't care how many times BlackRock decides it's going to sell everything and make all the other people scared, and your non-conviction, you know, short-term traders all decided, you know what, this is gambling, I'm out. I have been spending a lot of time and effort of my downtime, you know, not watching any movies, not playing any video games, not doing anything. I've been doing this. I've been learning a lot, and I have learned a lot. I've learned quite a bit. What I haven't learned is how to control my emotions. So once I get that under control, I mean, that's all she wrote. And, you know, when you listen to almost every other trader that eventually made it, I mean, every once in a while you hear about that one person that for some reason they got in and the luck has just been on their side the whole time. And not only that, but maybe they're just really good at following orders. That's what I think my issue is, to be honest with you. I'm one of those people that doesn't really believe in giving or taking orders. Like, I'm the kind of person that's just like, I'm very self-sustaining on my own. I don't really need to be a part of your false dichotomy of control, which is just kind of how my brain goes. I'm like one of those anti-conformist types. Anti-conformist to a fault. Even if something makes sense to follow, I'm like, yeah, I don't follow people. Sorry about that. And then I did with Charlie, and watch what it did. It burned me. You know, I finally followed somebody, and my entire portfolio tanked. Harder than I even had having before that, right? You know, I was already spinning my wheels. I wasn't doing well on my own either. But as soon as I followed someone, I mean, the entire stock market practically crashed. I know that it has nothing to do with him, and I know that's completely out of left field. But you still can't help it. Have some of those emotions creep in. Like, man, it doesn't matter what I do. I can follow someone, not follow someone. I'm just literally the most unluckiest trader on the planet. I mean, to be honest, aside from a few trades, like 3 or 4 right at the beginning, I haven't even been accidentally making money. You know, you might hear about like people that get lucky. I haven't even been having any up luck. Like, not even by accident. Not even at all. And it's funny because that's kind of like, if I wanted to really go down like a hole of psychology or whatever, or negativity, I would say, I would be like, yeah, that's always been my life. I'm just the unlucky person. But what's funny is, whenever that happens to me, though, I don't think of it negatively. I think of it as, yeah, that's fine, because whenever I've ever had to have something in my life, I've always had to earn it. Like, we're talking from the ground up, hands in the dirt, earn it. I've never had anything lucky happen, aside from maybe meeting my wife. I think that's the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, because she kind of fell into my life out of nowhere when I was like, what were we, 15, 16 years old? Met her at a random place. Do you know what I mean? And that's great. I'd say that, you know, and then, you know, the birth of my kids, obviously, you know, got lucky there. You know, sometimes people are infertile, and it is what it is. But beyond that, when it comes to being able to just, you know, have money does not fall from the sky for me. It doesn't happen. I'm not the lotto winner guy. It's pretty much preordained that I'm going to have to scrounge and scrape and earn every dollar that I make. And maybe that's just you know, a negative attitude. People would think that's a negative attitude that I have, and I'm just like, listen, I'm just looking at the pattern, and I've had to earn every dollar. People don't hand me money. It's just not something that happens, and that's okay. And I don't have an issue with that. That's normal. I think that's the way it should be for everybody. So what ends up happening is I look at that mindset of, okay, well, I'm obviously really unlucky. I can't even just 50-50 roll a dice and accidentally make money. It just never seems to happen. But we know why that happens, right? Because even if I were to do a 50-50 coin toss, would I follow my rules on getting out? Probably not. That's the problem, right? So if I did a 50-50 coin toss, you know what? Forget it. I don't even care. I'm just going to throw a dart at the board, pick a stock. I'm going to give it a 5% stop loss and a 5% gain target. Just a 50-50 chance that I accidentally picked the right side. Would I get out when it hit 5%? Would I actually like stick to that? Or would I be like, oh, looks like it wants to go higher. You know what? I'm gonna take off my target, what do you call it? The target limit order that I have, and I'll just let it run. Then I go to work the next day, I come back and it actually fell back through again, and you're like, I could have made 5%. Or it starts going against you on your stop loss, and you're like, oh, it looks like it really does want to bounce though, but it's gonna bounce right below my stop loss. I should probably, make that a little lower, And you start changing the rules, So TLRY, I got into that at 29.13 on the 12th. And if I was looking for like a very short-term dead cat, that would have been an amazing trade. I mean, it jumped to $37 within 2 days, right? Because that thing came slamming down to the ground hard. Even a dead cat would bounce hard. And yeah, but that's not what I was going for. I was going for the long term. I sell when Charlie sells. And I'm just watching as my entire portfolio just tanks. And I'm over here like, your goal is to be a trader, not an investor. If you wanted to be an investor, you would have basically just continued throwing all of your money into your 401k and set it and forget it, right? Don't bother with this. This is a waste of time and energy. If you're going to be an investor, I could just, the person that I invest with in my 401k, the group that I invest with, it's always been managed from the beginning. And what's funny is they're one of the few groups that beats the SPY. I make more than 10% a year in that account. I've never had a reason to complain. Matter of fact, I tried calling them one time because I thought I was smarter than they were. Because I did have one year that was like not so good. And I call them up and I'm like, hey, listen, I think I want to be unmanaged now in my 401k, because there's fees involved and all that kind of stuff, and I feel like I can make a little more if I wasn't constantly having exchange in and out fees, And then he read me some numbers, and he was right. Like, even with this, I don't know why other companies can't do it right, and I'm even with like one of those larger brokers that people would be like, yeah, that's like one of those large companies that doesn't even care if you make money; they just want their fees. That's what it would sound. That's what it would sound like if you heard the name that I'm with out loud. But I don't know why, but they know what they're doing over there. They know how to, they know how to put it into the right growth ETFs, because that's all they really do is just put them in like these Vanguard funds and stuff like that, these big ETFs, these big mutual funds and all that kind of stuff. And I've outpaced the SPY. Not by much or anything like that. It's not like they're really like, doing hardcore day trading for me or anything like that. But, they reallocate like about once a year, and they reallocate pretty well, and I have steady growth over beating, and actually slightly beating the SPY. So if I wanted to, I'd quit this today. Just do more overtime at my day job, right? And then just dump even more money into that, and then just eventually retire like a normal person, But my goal here is to eventually get good at this. That way this can become an actual source of income. I've got a blue-collar day job, and I do know that my body will not want to do this forever. Now, I work for a company that likes to restructure their management all the time and constantly move people around and fire them. Well, let them go. Delete their job out from under them. Restructure, right? So when I was a frontline employee doing like the hard heavy lifting as a blue collar employee at the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go supervisor, I'm gonna go manager, I'm gonna make it happen. That was my attitude at the beginning. But then within like 5 years, I watched as almost all of the supervisors and managers that I respected were moved to positions they didn't want to be in or were fired. That's like, and then like every 5 years after that, I've been watching them redo it to them again. I'm like, this isn't the kind of company I think I want to be a manager or supervisor for. But by this time, I've made so many yearly raises and I'm making triple per hour what I did when I started that I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just a blue collar guy. I'm good to go. I'm making decent bank. I make above the average median income of the United States. I mean, that's middle class. I can't ask for much more out of a blue collar job, especially one where you work for somebody else. Usually a blue collar job where you want to make decent money is like, you gotta own the trade. You gotta be the carpenter in charge of your own carpentry team or something like that. You gotta own the business. But I work for a company that, doesn't pay you quite great at first, but with some raises and some promotions, I've been with them 14 years and making good bank. But now I'm like, I want to stay with this company for the duration of the time that I am a worker, but I don't want to go into their positions where they like to just suddenly let people go. They don't do it to their frontline employees because they have enough of a, frontline employees are a larger pool of employees, like for every supervisor, there's like 11 people beneath them, that sort of thing. So the frontline employees have a lot more job security because there's enough people that just kind of like leave on their own because they want to pursue something else in their life or whatever, that they don't have to just start letting people go to downsize or anything like that. Enough people leave on their own that they can just kind of delete your job when you're gone. And then when they decide that they're in a growth period again and they want to bulk hire, they can do that later, right? But for now, they'll just delete your job as you're gone. They don't really let people go just to let people go because they're downsizing or anything like that. At the blue collar stage, they do it for middle management all the time. But for the frontline employees, they're just like, we've got maybe we got too many heads right now. But, within a year, some of those heads will be like voluntarily leaving anyway. So they're just like, whatever, we'll just wait for them to leave. Then we'll delete their job when they're gone. And it makes the rest of the employee pool have better morale because they don't know anybody that's ever been fired just because they're downsizing. You know what I mean? It's good for morale. So I could just do that. I could just do my day job, invest with my 401k management, and just call it a day. But like I said, one day my body's gonna hit a wall, and I know that. When you're a guy and you're still relatively young, like I am, you think you're gonna, be able to be strong and fast and all that kind of stuff forever, right? But if you're smart, that's not true. You're eventually gonna hit a wall. Unless you're one of those people that really does a very good job at taking care of yourself. And I know a couple, there's actually one old head in my company that he's still doing what I do, and he's like been there long. We're talking over 30 years. And he seems to be in even better shape than I am. Like, he's just in good shape. There's just something about, he's just the kind of person that I guess has always taken care of his body in such a way that, this job will never faze him. But also, when he's on the job, he's not lazy. But he doesn't go out of his way to be the physical hero. Does that make sense? Like, if you're gonna pull or lift something real heavy, he ain't volunteering. And maybe that's why he's had the longevity that he has, is because, if you tell him he has to pick up the box, he will, but he won't go volunteer to do it. You know, and he does work throughout the day. He's not lazy. It's just, I feel like he's just been kind of like, I'm going to take care of my body. It's more important than this job. And that makes sense, you know, whereas someone like me, you know, I don't eat as well as he does. I think he actually exercises outside of work, and he does it in like a healthy way. I pretty much put all of my exercising into work. I mean, I basically use my job as my, you know, gym. And I just go, okay, you want me to lift the heavy shit? I'll lift the heavy shit. I'll do this, I'll do that. You know, and for the most part over the years, I mean, I've bulked up a lot when it comes, you know, just by being a hard worker, you know. But I know that eventually my knees are going to go. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just know. You know, thought about getting into like a, you know, like a physical therapy now, to try and, you know, alleviate that happening in the future. Because I already know that you can do things like get your muscles, you know, like built up around your kneecaps and stuff like that. And you don't have to just do what people make it sound like you're going to do and just eventually have bad knees and that's it, you're done. You can keep that from happening. And even if you do end up with bad knees, you can rebuild them. You know, my wife did it. She had some issues that made it so that way she had to be kind of bedridden for a while, and then after a while, like, her legs became weak. I mean, she still walked around, but just like, you know, she was, you know, they were just like, you know, I wouldn't say they were atrophied because she still sometimes walked around, but you know what I mean, like, they got weaker. And eventually, like, there was almost no muscle around her knees. So when she started actually being like a more, like, you know, energetic and physical person again, after like her major, you know, issues with this debilitating problem, you know, she had her knee pop out of place a couple times. She's young. And she went to physical therapy, and they were just like, look, you got like no muscles around your knees. We got to rebuild them. And they did. And like, not even 6 months later, like, she never even came close to having that weird feeling that her knee would pop out again. You know, granted, you know, it's a good idea to continue doing things like that and, you know, build it up even more. But I guess the whole point is to bring it back to where I'm at. You know, I could start working on it now, you know, make it so that way I could work for this company forever and, you know, always have good knees, you know, like, I'm over here like, but why, I do want to have good knees, but do I want to work for this company forever? Obviously that part's, you know, I'm looking at this dream world of, you know, being a stock trader and, you know, quitting your job. And like I said before in the last video, I did not go into this with those dreams of grandeur being fast or anything like that. Not at all. Even day one, before I even listened to the first trader try to tell you that you're not going to get rich quick, I already knew I wouldn't. I went into this with a idea that maybe I could at least get enough consistent growth that within 10 years I could quit my job. And now when you're listening to that, you're like, wow, that's like a long time. Almost no one gets into this thinking that it's going to be a 10-year process. I figured it would. I did think that I would have already gotten to a point where I started at least making money by now. But I did know that it would be a learning curve, it would be a costly learning curve, and that it might take a while to get your shit together and, you know, grow to a point that you can actually consistently rely on yourself with confidence to get it done, you know? And it's rough because, you know, you're just constantly feeling like you're almost right there. You just figure out one more thing and you got it. You just figure out one more thing and you got it. And you want to know what's funny? Like I said before, most of this is mental. You know, when you're listening to these gurus, they are not messing with you. Most of this is mental. And I know that it is because I'm a very self-aware type of person, and I know exactly where my flaws are in this, and I still won't fix them. Like, I know where my flaws are. If I literally were to like take a step back and pretend I'm somebody else and start writing down like some sort of psychologist where you're messing up, I could do it. I could do it for myself. You're messing up here, 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 and here. And I break the rules again anyway. Just keep doing it. And it's funny because, you know, you're listening to these gurus and they talk about people doing that kind of stuff, and you're almost like, I'm listening to them knowing I'm doing it to myself, and I'm like, how can someone do that to herself? That's weird. How can they just literally know that they're doing the wrong thing and they just keep doing it over and over again and getting burned? And I'm over here like, I'm doing that. It's weird, right? Psychology of, wanting to be positive all the time and not let any negativity enter into your mind. So you could literally have like this weird, almost hypocritical thinking inside your head at the same time that you're like, hey, how come everybody else can't figure this out? What, are they stupid? While at literally the same time, the other half of your brain is trying to block the part where you're like, you can't figure this out, stupid. You know what I mean? You want to make fun of everybody else, you know? So, two more. So I got in another trade, not even really much to talk about there. It's down, BLL. I got in it because it looked good on the daily. That one was one of my, I'm actually trying to stick to my plan kind of plays. I'm waiting for it to cross a certain moving average, and I'm just going to wait for it to cross back under it and sell it. And it started going down with the rest of the market, and I didn't sell it when it went under the moving average because it went under it so fast and it looked so like it's ready for bounce, you know. I'm pretty sure it's bottoming out, you know. Why get out when that'll tie up, because I'm not on margin, I'm on a cash account, so it's like, why get out? That means now I gotta wait 2 days for my money to settle to get back in it, and what if it finally pops? So I'm just watching it go down with the rest of the market. You know, if you're thinking about these long term, these aren't bad trades. They are all gonna go back up. When you're trying to become a swing trader or a day trader though, that's not the time horizon you're looking for. You know, I'll eventually make money somewhere between 50 and 100%, somewhere between 6 months and a year and a half, and you're like, I could go out tomorrow, go to a Goodwill, buy a table for $10 and flip it for $100. It's actually literally like one of the things that my wife does. She likes to do that kind of stuff. And I'm helping her with it sometimes, so I see how it works out. You know, I help her, you know, sometimes these tables need a little work. You gotta do a little work to them, so I help her with that. And like, I could go buy a table tomorrow, flip it for $100 in like 2 days. I've seen it done. It's not even that hard. But here I am doing this. Do you know what I mean? So when I look at that time horizon, where you're like, yeah, well, you'll know it'll come back. Charlie says so. You can trust him. And I do, quite frankly. Everything that he says about these companies makes sense to me. Most of these are looking like they're going to come back. HYLM was a bit of a mistake. But the other two, PLTR, TLRY, they're coming back. They're going up. Literally, the stock market would have to go to zero for those to not come back. They're bullish at this point still. Even with all of the blood getting sucked out, they're still at a bullish pattern. So, so I'm over here, like I said, I mean, I could buy a table, make $100 the next day. You know, 1,000% markup. Why not? 900% markup. Whatever, you do the math. But I tried getting into stock trading like about 8 years ago. I tried it the first time, quit very quickly. Actually tried it twice, quit very quickly. And I think it's because back then I really did see it as gambling, and it is gambling. But what I mean is that no one knows how to figure this stuff out, that everybody's gambling, you know. Back then I was like true amateur, you know, like didn't know anything about anything, so everything I did was all like euphoria. And you know, your heart's pumping like this because you literally have no idea what the stock's gonna do. And you're just getting in and getting out at random places, and you're not having any thought process behind it at all. This time I'm like, no, I'm in this for the long haul, man. I literally don't care if I slowly lose money almost forever until I finally get it right. That's my goal with this. This is my retirement plan. It's not a short-term one. I am under no illusions about, you know, getting rich quick or any of that stuff. For me, this is a long-term. I plan on becoming a professional at it. I am looking at this like I am paying for my college degree right now in my losses. And here's the thing. I don't even have, my losses aren't that big. I did not fund my account with a lot of money. I knew I was going to suck at first. Like, I knew it, you know. So I only funded it with like $1,800. Now, to other people, some of that sometimes might seem like a lot of money, but to someone that's been working a blue-collar job for like a really long time, it wasn't like I had a lot of money sitting around. I only put a tiny of it in there. You know, I don't have a lot of money sitting around or anything. But I could, like, tomorrow, you know, redirect some monthly funds I have doing something else to investing in this. Where, you know, like, okay, now you know you're profitable, you can start building your account, you know, month over month, put a few more hundred in there to help it grow, as well as doing the trading to help it grow. But I'm refusing to put any more money in this account. I have to prove to myself that with this initial money, I can make this work. I have to prove it. I refuse to blow more money on it as if I'm at the casino and you lost all your money to the house, you just go to the ATM. I don't think so. I'm not doing that. You know? Now, because I only have so much money in there, it also adds more fear. So that's rough. Because I have, like I said before, I have this mentality that I do believe this is gambling, and in the past, before getting into this, I believed gambling was dumb. Like, unless you really were a card counter and you literally know how to intentionally rip off the casino itself, gambling's dumb to me. To me, I always said to everyone around me, my wife, my kids, whoever, I said, you don't ever gamble with money you can't already afford to lose. So when I got into this, I'm like, okay, I have $1,800 that I'm going to deem as affordable to lose. But once it goes to zero, I'm not going to want to put any more money in there. Not as like a quitter, but as like a, I can't afford to lose anymore. Like that. So it definitely has me being a lot more conservative and not taking risks, and this is a risk-taking endeavor. Because I'm over here like, even though I'm slowly losing the money, and, you know, by attrition, we're talking like, you're down 5% a month, you're down 5% the next month, you're down 5% the next month. But remember, I'm down 5% of the current amount, not of the original amount. So, you know, let's say you go from 1,800 and now you're down to 1,000. Well, 5% of 1,000 is what? Only what? $50 or something like that? You know, and then when you're down to 500, 5% of that is only 25. You see how, like, it takes forever to actually get to zero? Because I'm consistently losing about the same percentage per month. Approximately the same percentage per month. But I'm not losing the same dollar amount per month. Yes, if you lost the same dollar amount per month, you would just go to zero. But if you lose the same percentage of the current amount that was in your account from the previous month, I mean, you never go to zero. But the problem is, yeah. It's got me probably more conservative than it should be. It adds that extra fear of, if this gets to the point where I'm like, I'm literally trading with peanuts, you might want to quit, and then you spent all this time trying to learn for what? So it adds there's all of this different pressure that's added in from all sides. The pressure of making money, the pressure of not being done with the money you already have, the pressure of, you know, not losing your initial educational investment, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it messes with you, you know. I really thought that when I got into this, that sure, I knew that there was going to be some growing pains, but I thought I was literally built for it. And like I said, I'm being honest, man, this is tough. Now, I am optimistic because, again, I have learned a lot, and I know that I've hit this wall where I just have to finally, you know, like that, you know, trading psychology book was talking about. I know that I have to shit or get off the pot, which is just believe in your trade. I said it in the last video. Believe in your trade. What's there to lose? You're already losing money every month anyway. What's the difference? What's the difference? Why drive yourself crazy? trying to figure this out, like constantly jumping from, oh, that didn't work, I'll do something else. Oh, that didn't work, I'll do something else. Oh, that didn't work, I'll do something else. Why not just stick to one tool and sharpen it? And yes, take your losses. There's going to be some, no matter what tool you use. And then get better at using that tool, get more confident using that tool, and you just get in and you just get out. And then follow your plan. And so I'm kind of at that wall where I listened to this book right after I got into all these trades, when it came to me deciding I'm just going to put 80% of my portfolio into both growth ETFs. And Charlie plays and just trust them instead. Right after that, I listened to this book and I was like, yeah, that was dumb. But I'm still just sitting here watching them as they go lower with the rest of the market. Anyway, getting to my last trade, and this one was like a personal, I'm going to actually try to make money with all that money that came out of those ETF plays. Okay, well, now I'm out of those ETFs, where do I stick that money? So I got into ZOM, Z-O-M. Now, I got in at a really good point. It was $1.81 that I got in. What day was it, though? It's got to be here, the 26th. It had a double, bottom on the 26th, and I got it on the 5-minute chart because it was actually on a Friday. So I was luckily, this is going to be a swing trade, but I could, take it down a level to a 5-minute chart and get in at an even lower cost, and then watch as it, goes above the SMA on the 5-minute, then watch as it goes above the SMA on the 4-hour, and then I'm like, okay, we're good, we're in. But then, of course, the market decided it was not really green day yet. That was a green day, and we were good till the 3rd, on the 3rd, which was 2 days ago, so that was Wednesday? With the rest of the market going back down again, it came back down. And take a guess, I didn't sell out. I guess what it was is I wasn't really looking necessarily for a particular moving average target. I was looking for a particular price target on that one. Because I know that on the 30-day, it's kind of below its standard deviation. It's oversold. And I'm looking for it to kind of, reach a lot higher again. It hasn't even had, it's at about a 50% retracement on its big climb from the 2nd to the 11th too. And again, just like with PLTR, this is shaping up to look good in comparison to everything else having the blood sucked out of it. This is looking like all we need is finally for all that money to come back in and everyone to be bullish again. And this one's it looks like it's gonna skyrocket. So I was like, I'm looking for this to go back up towards, its high that it just had on the 11th of like $3. So I'm in at 181. I'm looking for it to go to $3. And even though it crossed back under my 4-hour SMA, I'm like, yeah, but it's still rounding out on the bottom again. And it's doing so, like right now, it's at 182. So I watched as it went up. Well, not watched because I have a day job. So of course I'm never going to be able to time exactly when to get out for the SMA. But I watched as it went up to 223. That would have been like a decent gain. What was that? I think over 2 days it was like 15%. I forget the number. That would have been a decent gain if I just got out there and waited for it to come back down again and got back in again. But it's kind of annoying when you're when you can't really pay attention to what the markets are doing all day because you have a day job, because you're like, well, if I get out now, will I really be able to be there again to get in at the bottom again? Because I can only be that precise on getting in at the bottom on a Friday. Every other day of the week, I kind of have to wait till I get home after hours and try to grab whatever I can get. You're not going to hit real bottom because it's not at the bottom. Some things might be at that point, but you know what I mean. You're not literally sitting there watching the 5-minute chart hit bottom and getting in. Now all I can do is, look at the more macro of 4-hour chart and go, okay, it doesn't look good on the 4-hour, and get in at whatever random price that's at. So ZOM, right now it's, you know, kind of having a bullish morning, and it's at a resting place of exactly where I got in, 181. So if it bottoms out here, then I'm still good to go. But the question becomes, what's my plan for getting out though, right? That's where the issue is with a trade like this, that you know that you've got a price target, but any weird kind of fluctuations over the next week can happen. And there's a high probability that with the way everything's been going over the past few weeks, there's a high probability that if I were to put some stop on this, almost guaranteedly, no matter what that spot stop number was, it's gonna get hit. And now it's not me being like, oh, I'm so unlucky that it's gonna get hit. It's everything's acting so crazy right now. Like the probabilities are that that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna hit my stop and then finally climb. So you're over here like, do I put the stop on? Do I put the stop loss in? Where do I put it? Do I put it below the actual, you know, first bounce swing low? Because that'd be $1.31. That's pretty low. You know, do I put it on the previous swing low? Because that'd be $1.63. Well, that sounds pretty tight. You know, and it might literally have to bounce exactly there to really actually come back up on the 4 hour. So what do? You're pretty sure you need this bad boy to go to $3. But if you get out now, there goes the one trade that you're in that seems like it might actually go somewhere. So it's like weird, you know, you think about the psychology of that. The rest of your account's in the red. Completely in the red. Blood's got sucked out of the market. So you're like, okay, I'm going to do a shorter term trade where, you know, and just get into this and try to use that as a hedge against my longer term trades being down. And then your shorter term trade is kind of messing with you too. And you're like, well, I need this to go back up again. I need this to hit $3 to kind of offset all the losses. And you know that psychology is wrong. You know that you should have just went, okay, I got in on this SMA, I get out on that SMA, and that's it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You made some money, you got out it. Let's see what it would have looked like if I had actually done that. So I got in on the 80 line. I have like this 80 SMA that I have on my 5-minute chart, and I got in on 181 over here on the 26th. Then where to climb to that I probably, if I actually followed my rules, where I would have gotten out at, it would have climbed above my 4 hour SMA line, but then on the 4th it dropped below it. And that's technically, because I was thinking to myself, okay, here's, like I said before, here's how I would like to trade, and it does seem like it works most of the time, and if you do end up getting out, it's mostly at a ever so slight loss or at a break even, so that's a winning thing, right? So my thing is, you wait for it to jump up above the SMA line, that the SMA line starts looking like it's on a curvature upward, and then it rests upon it and goes higher. There's your first higher high, higher low, boom, you're taking off. So what I did with the 80 SMA line on the 5-minute was it did that. I got in at 181 because it popped up above the SMA line, hit 181, and then it went up. Then, before it even thought about coming down and looking bearish below that line, it popped above my, where do I got this at? Popped above my 20. Yeah, popped above my 20 SMA line on my 4 hour. So now I'm like, okay, so if basically that purple line, if my 5-minute line kind of comes down towards it's now above my 4-minute line, my 4 hour line. And then if it kind of like curls out and just kind of bottoms out, touching the 4 hour at that point, now we're talking, right? You got in early, and now you can follow the 4 hour line up and really make some money. But it didn't do that. You know, it crossed below the 4 hour line again, and that's when I should have got out at a gain at $2. And that would have been, you know, at least a small gain, and I wouldn't be sitting here going, darn, it's back at 181 again when I got in. At the same time, I'm looking at it and it looks like it's doing a bottoming out again, to where it's looks like everyone wanted to get in. You know, when I say everyone, I mean not me. I ride the wave. So a bunch of other people got in at $1.70 the first time, and then it popped up, and I got in at 181, and at about 171, $1.70, 173, they got in again. It's starting to look bullish this morning here, and it's now up above. It's looking like it's going to do almost exactly like what it did last time. So that's now a triple bottom. Because the 23rd they had a bottom at around, it kind of did like a major, bottoming tail on the 4 hour. And it actually went all the way as low as 136, but that could have just been someone going, ooh, look, stops to buy up. When I see something like that, when I see something that's crashing hard and then it has a bottoming tail that is just huge, like we're talking like a 30% bottoming tail, I'm usually like, that's probably going back up very soon. And I've seen that before. That's like the one pattern I do like very much, is when you see a bottoming tail like that. And the next hump, the next bottoming doesn't even go as low as that. You're like, yeah, that was someone that's smarter than the rest of us, has a lot of money, and just started buying everything up. That giant bottoming tail. And then now we're on the third bottom at around the same spot, 173, 170. Now, like I said, the first bottom, I don't really count that gigantic bottoming tail past the 170 mark, because again, it's like that's just one candle. That's just someone buying up all kinds of opportunity. That's all that is. So I would say it doesn't mean anything. It's usually a bullish indicator to me. I've seen that pattern before. You see a bottoming tail that long, and you're just like, yep, just gotta wait for the second one. It'll come back up, it'll bounce. Now, as we're seeing here, not guaranteedly it bounces the first time and you make money, because I got my double bottom, I got in, and now it's back again at my original entry at a triple bottom here. So let's hope we don't go for bottom number 4, because then it'll get really scary, right? But it's looking so far like this might actually be a Green Friday, which will be a nice change. You know what I think is funny about, actually, that's why I got into this trade originally last Friday, was because that last Friday was very sideways. And then I've seen this before. You guys might identify with this. After hours on Friday, there was like a massive increase of volume, more than usual, on last Friday. And I was like, I think Monday's gonna be green. Now, usually everyone else speculates on all kinds of stuff and reasons why. My thing is, when I see after hours have a massive increase in volume, especially knowing that your amateur traders are scared, and most amateur traders hate trading after hours anyway. Well, most regular traders hate trading after hours, not just amateurs. I'm talking just regular day traders. Most people hate trading after hours. And especially on like a massively red week, when they're not going to be confident. And it's into the weekend. Most people have the attitude of, I don't hold into the weekend. So when I see the volume go up by 50% in comparison to its 5-day average on after hours, I'm like, I know what that is. Someone decided this is bottom. Someone with money decided this is bottom. And so, I don't know that it's a long term this is bottom, or a short term, because again, what happened a couple days later, it crashed again. But I knew then Monday would be green. That's my indicator. I don't look at almost anything else aside from after hours purchasing. Not always. When the market's acting relatively normal with normal fluctuations, it doesn't, after hours doesn't look like much. But when you're watching it like just decline, someone goes, hey, what's that saying, buy when everyone else is fearful? Someone out there actually follows that. And we're talking the big money, because Friday, after hours comes and they're buying everything. When everyone else is not only fearful because the last 2 weeks have been all red, But they're also fearful because it's into the weekend, and even on a good week, nobody wants to hold into the weekend. And this whoever is just buying everything. The whole market's, well, not the whole market. The SPY itself looked sideways, like real deadline sideways on that aftermarket, but the volume was through the roof. Through the roof. And on almost all of my plays anyway, the ones that were going to be bullish in the first place, they were going up. I guess that all of the other plays that were, you know, less conviction that were already going down, I guess maybe a ton of those got sold too, and that's why the SPY was totally almost flat sideways on that Friday. But that's my indicator. You know, after hours, massive purchasing at the end of like a red week. I'm like, yeah. You know, because I've seen that before. Whenever I've you know, we've all been having our own little ways of finding little patterns, and generally I find that if we got like a red week and then on Friday people buy like a lot after hours, going into like the most fearful scenario ever, which is we're already red all week and now it's the weekend and someone's buying, yeah, that's big money doing that. Because they know no one else is getting in, and they know that they get to decide where the bottom is. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough. It's 9:09, opening bell happens in 21 minutes. So far, everything that I'm in is up on pre-market. So this might just be a relatively, for a Friday, because most people hate trading on Friday and into the weekend. So for a Friday, this might actually be a relatively green day. Fridays are usually either red or sideways, and people just kind of, you know, trade in and out of the, you know, the big ticker of the day that has a lot of volatility, but you don't really see a lot of, you know, conviction and purchasing power on a Friday. But so far, relatively in comparison to what we've had, and it being a Friday, it looks like it might actually turn out to be a green day. But then again, I could be wrong about that. All right, guys.